Hi there, everybody. This is Scott Jors, and this is another episode of the Wolf and the Neural Network. Today we're going to discuss a response that I received from the CRCC. And it's been, the case has been open for over 1,050 days. And since the CRCC had requested evidence, another batch of evidence, it was 271 days. Now, I've been waiting for this response for a long time there. You can see in the other videos I created, there was serious misconduct listed by some of these employees and during this process and everything. And so what I want to do is I actually just want to read through this letter and explain to you guys how they responded, what my feelings are, and do a basic behavioral assessment on that before I send the response, okay? So I'm going to start by reading the letter that they had sent, and I'll jump in at different parts there to talk about different pieces, okay? So, good morning, Scott Jors. I apologize for the lengthy delay in getting back to you, but unfortunately the Commission has numerous other complaints to deal with and a finite amount of resources to deal with them. Furthermore, you provided extensive information for the Commission to consider in your May 25th, 2025 response to the Commission's October 20th, 2024 email. The information is still being examined, but we have some follow-up questions to it. While you are certainly entitled to an update on your complaint, I would note that you have submitted numerous unsolicited emails and attachments to this Commission since May 25th, 2025, despite the fact that our Commission asked in its October 20th, 2024 email that you only answer the questions asked and you do not supply information beyond the questions that you are being asked. For example, your December 16th, 2025, I assume this means email, includes a link to an approximately 2.5 hours video you apparently posted on YouTube. I would ask that you not send any further unsolicited emails to the Commission regarding this complaint, as it would simply clog the system and delay a response from the Commission that you are seeking. Failure to adhere to this request may result in the Commission placing restrictions on your future ability to communicate with the Commission. The Commission will assess your complaint based on based on the information you provided with your online submission. The follow-up questions we asked your May 2025 responses to those questions and responses to further questions we might ask. The Commission will not assess unsolicited communication we previously cautioned you against sending. That being said, can you please answer the following questions? Now, so before we go through the questions, we need to talk about what he wrote here. So, you'll note he never said I caused them any problems, said anything. I never did anything wrong other than sent them multiple emails requesting a follow-up. So then we'll discuss that, right? So, the whole premise of the case is a violent sexual assault, right? This case has been open for 3 years. Now, you hear inside this letter, he says, I sent multiple letters since the May 25th, 2025 submission, despite them asking me not to. Here's the point. Now, when RCMP didn't respond for over 800 and some days, and this wouldn't have been until June 4th, of 2025, so after this May thing, right? And they just opened my case for 4 days, closed it, never contacted me, confirmed there was no reference to the violent sexual assault or anything on the record. Here's the thing. Now, he says in our October 20th, 24 email, if you go back to that, they literally said, we have engaged our complaints directed and asked them to have Trevor Allen contact you. Trevor Allen and Corey Bush are the ones that just closed the case in June of 2025. That was to do with Paul, the guy who sent this letter, David, and Carol. So I would submit that to CRCC on this main email thread. Paul would reply on July 18th, 2025, asking specifically for that letter. I had provided it. I'd also provided a video. So what I did was I replied to him saying, here you go, Paul. Here's this serious information. They just closed this case. I told you your employees did not record the violent sexual assault. Here they are, not recording the violent sexual assault. They just closed a case. There could be a sex offender walking around. There could be other victims. This is really bad, right? So he asked for this document, so guess what I did? Every couple weeks I followed, hey, did you receive this? I've got some serious concerns. Given the conduct of these officers and that of CRCC not recording the violent sexual assault or abuse, and it's been, 2.5 years at this stage, can you please just respond stating, yes, Scott, we received this letter and what my escalation options are. What am I supposed to do as a Canadian citizen at this stage? Right? Like, as just as a person. right? I've done my due diligence. I waited multiple years. I'm telling you, there's national security issues. Here, I've got this CASIS case number. There's a violent sexual assault. I've got audio recordings of these officers threatening me. Children were threatened. Disabled women were threatened. Right? The evidence is just incredible. And so, you will see very clearly, he requested that information. You will see all of my follow-ups asking him, can you please just confirm that you received that letter? Please, it's so serious. Can you please just confirm that you received what you yourself had asked for? That's right, everybody. You want to hear what the questions were that I was sending him after a violent sexual assault and all this abuse? And this is really important, okay? I have not received confirmation that you received the RCMP letter, confirmation that has been isolated from my submitted rebuttal and our CRCC review request. It was included in raw format. Hey, maybe you can't go through my request, but did you just at least isolate it? Do you have a copy? Please just confirm. It's a serious piece of evidence. Please. That's it. That's all you got to do. And then said acknowledgement of my follow-up emails. Okay? Now, clarification requested. Has the RCMP letter been isolated from the submitted rebuttal and review request? Has the case been escalated to a director within CRCC? If not, will you do so? Has this case been escalated to a commissioner, Mike Duham? If not, will you do so? Has this case been escalated to Commissioner Dennis Daly? If not, will you do so? Given the documented pattern of RCMP's officers lying, the career stakes and those involved, and audio recordings of RCMP threats against me, how can I receive a fair investigation by RCMP, particularly where there were already has been an uncontestable cover-up of serious abuse, including a violent sexual assault? That's right. Are those questions bad? I literally said that I would stop sending those if you just answer me and say, hey, actually, yes, we received a copy of that, Scott. That's correct. So, you're going to ask, how many emails did I send? I was responsible about this. I sent about one in every 16 days, so every 2 weeks. And in fact, I had left gaps. And inside of this, I did technical testing. So you see the wolf in the neural network. I'm running statistics on it and all the different connections and can show you these different spikes when I send those emails to the commission, CRCC. They'll pop up here on the screen here. I was able to stagger the dates and you will see them break apart coming from these different countries, but it doesn't make sense that they're all lined up. But anyways, that's not important about this, but those emails and sending, especially over the last few months, were to gather information which was handed to CSIS, and Daniel Rogers of CSIS himself was given access to go through and do an actual assessment on that evidence. All right, so this wasn't arbitrary. Listen, it's been 3 years. Okay, if you were sexually assaulted, is 3 years appropriate? 271 days? Do you think that if Paul or his family was sexually assaulted and abused, had a portion of this happen to him, that he thinks it would be appropriate for 271 days to not respond or even answer that, hey, yes, Scott, we actually received it? To at least basically empathize with somebody, right? It's been 3 years. Somebody was abused. Whether you believe me or not, you must understand that would be pretty stressful, right? None of that whatsoever. Instead, he positions himself as a victim inside this letter, doesn't he? Now, here's the other thing. So we got to go back to his statements, okay? Because he then states, for example, your December 16, 2025 video includes a link to an approximately 2.5 hours video you apparently posted on YouTube. Here's the title of that video. Season 4, Episode 6, Deep Dive into False Arrest, Torture, and Sexual Assault on August 2nd, 2022, which is exactly the content that he had requested. So it's directly pertinent, it's directly in line. I never forced them to do that. I never said, hey, can you watch this? I just said, hey, here's a video, FYI. I'm doing a serious security review. Here's the CSIS case number and everything. Can you, at least as the commission, just answer these basic questions and I will leave you alone. You just answer them. And they're very basic procedural stuff. This is a national security concern. I'm coming to you with an open CSIS case number. This is really serious. I don't feel like you're taking this very seriously. And we have these incidents with Carol and David, and serious evidence that they covered up a violent sexual assault, and Paul himself may be complicit in that. He must be. He didn't do anything about this. He now had this delay for 271 days. That's right. So is it any wonder he's trying to position himself as a victim because I'm sending emails? That's right. He knows he had a responsibility to reply and acknowledge that RCMP letter. He knows the sexual assault is serious, and that's a serious allegation. He knows that those conditions were raised to CRCC, that those staff members didn't record it, and that was causing an issue. And here these officers just close the case, don't mention the sexual assault. Well, Paul is fully aware of it. That's right. So Paul would have to report himself. Do you see the problem here? That's right. So he has to position himself as a victim. And you're going to see then what the way that these questions were then asked. You'll say, yeah, okay, they're generally useful. But why would he ask these questions? Why? Right? So we're going to go through the questions, okay? So, do you know the names of the officers who apprehended you on August 2nd, 2022 at Halifax Regional Police Headquarters under the Involuntary Psychiatric Treatment Act? If you do not know their names, were they members of Halifax Regional Police or were they RCMP members? Here's the thing. In my submission, I made it clear the reason I went down to Halifax Regional Police was to file a complaint against Chief Dan Kinsella and that I had all of this evidence. They then said they were getting me a paper to file a complaint, came back and just arrested me. I had submitted evidence way beforehand, said I was going down and all of this different stuff here. They knew this, but here they state that, okay, they're talking about Involuntary Psychiatric Treatment Act, but don't state the reason I was at the headquarters. That's right, so if you were reading that question, would you know why I was there and why those police might have retaliated and why that part about IPTA is important? Of course you would. Had Paul have answered that and supplied the full context, then I wouldn't require a long, detailed answer. Right? But then I'm going to have to do a detailed answer, and then I'm going to be reprimanded for that, and then he's going to use that statement against me. You can see this, that this appears to be positioning to use IPTA in advance. So, oh, I sent a bunch of emails. I must be retarded. These police officers wouldn't act like that. I must be retarded. That's right, but you will see I have audio recordings showing Nova Scotia Health Authority's information. Doesn't match at all. It's complete fraud. And once somebody does an investigation, was it members of the Halifax Regional Police or was it members of the RCMP who handed your wallet or book bag? Now, see what they're doing with these two questions. They're trying to blame this on Halifax Regional Police. The truth of the matter is Halifax Regional Police themselves stated they were a conflict of interest because of Dan Kinsella, but also Jim Perrin and the involvement of Robin McNeil, because the court complaint involves Stephen McNeil, who's Robin McNeil's brother. And guess, Robin McNeil and Stephen McNeil? A bunch of their family are also spread through RCMP. So, or you may be wondering why there's all this retaliation and abuse coming from RCMP and they're not investigating, because they have massive players involved in this. Right? But they're trying to push this onto HRP so they can say, it's their fault, it's not our fault, it's not CRC, boo, 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 boo. This is on RCMP. There was a violent sexual assault, serious abuse, massive misconduct. Somebody has to investigate this. There's serious national security issues. There's a CSIS case number. This is RCMP and CRCC. But what they're trying to do is defer responsibility, right? That's the way that these are positioned. Well, that's the way that it looks, and somebody could easily interpret that. Because why would you not provide the additional context about Dan Kinsella? We'll go on to the next one. You stated that you were sexually assaulted on August 3rd, 2022, but your answer to the first question about who sexually assaulted you lacked clarity. You stated, while I do not have the exact names of the individuals responsible, I can identify them functionally, meaning I know their roles, locations, and involvement during the time of the incident. The individuals involved were staff members or agents connected to Nova Scotia Health Authority and or law enforcement personnel during my detainment and transfer. Anyways, I'm just going to skip through to the next part of those questions there. So then he just asked me, was the detainment and transfer carried out by members of the Halifax Regional Police or RCMP? There you go, because they're trying to defer to that, right? And this is the thing. This was reported to RCMP. I spoke with them in September of 2021, and they had said, oh my God, like these people need to answer these questions. I made myself fully available to this. That's right. Jessica Welk and those officers showed up afterwards threatening me, right? Making extremely inappropriate statements from August 16th forward, not allowing me to open a case. Right? One officer had to stop her from the statements that she was making, put his hand on her shoulder and said, you need to stop. I was sitting there calmly. They verified it with my family. Every one of their reports, including the other officers, talked about how calm, cool, and collected I was the entire time. All these Nova Scotia Health Authority records, every single person, their own review of all the evidence talked about how calm I was. Didn't do anything wrong. They tried to say it was the content of my speech and never listed a single thing. That's right, because then they could just say it's he said, she said. That's right. And here CRCC is trying to push it back onto RCM, or push it back onto HRP. How can Dan Kinsella investigate himself? How can they investigate them when there's that level of corruption like that? You can't, but that's what CRCC is trying to say, and they're going to try to say that they're the victim. Was anything damaged or stolen during the possible break-in that occurred at your home on January 29, 2023? Were there any signs of forced entry into your home? If so, please provide a description of those signs. So see, he's trying to focus on these signs. I made it clear there were additional witnesses that there was a break-in at my house. Lights were seen. Days before that, we had received rape calls. My aunt had. also received rape calls. And then on that same morning, associate of the family reported that somebody came up to them a line in Tim Hortons, said that they talking about CSIS and then just left. Right? Tim Houston, Premier, would show up at the hospital the morning that my mother died. And there was an interaction which was also logged. That's some significant context, isn't it? And detail. This just makes it sound like, oh, there was no break and enter, nothing was wrong. That's an act of terror. How do you know they didn't plant something in my house? I have no right to have the police investigate that, especially when there's other witnesses. Note in the question, they didn't say there was other witnesses that reported this, right? Because then they remove that context. It's about forced break-in. You can break into somebody's house without any type of forced entry. Doesn't mean it didn't happen like that, right? Oh, it wasn't obvious. You're just making it up. There's no reason. Well, without an investigation, how do you know? Right? It's just arbitrary, but that's the kind of thing that they need to rely on, right? What was the address of your home at that date? Please provide the commission with a copy of the main email thread that you reported the break and enter on. This February 17, 2023. He kind of messed up the wording. That's okay. February 27, 2023. So that's when I had emailed about Tim Houston. And those parties showing up noted that there was a break and enter and that the event was CSIS. Right? And so now you've got this response. So he never asked about a CSIS case number. He never asked about, like, what? Any, like, real details about any other events other than trying to frame this to look like HRP and to make it look like they're victims because they received emails after almost 3 years, 8 months, 271 days. Think about what I'm saying here. These people are not victims. That's right. So 8-month turnaround time. You as people watching this, how appropriate is that if you were sexually assaulted and abused? Do you think that his tone here and his suggestions are appropriate and that I was inappropriate just for asking for an update after 3 years? No. You all know that I'm not unreasonable about this. CRCC is in fact being unreasonable about this, and this is retaliation, right? You see, they don't need, listen, RCMP don't need them to know who's at CRCC, right? Abusers don't need to know that. They just need to know that CRCC is not going to hire people with integrity, right? So you end up with these individuals who are complicit, complacent, and compliant in this abuse. Paul would have to self-report himself. How many people? These officers would have to self-report themselves. His argument's going to be the police wouldn't lie. CRCC investigates the police lying. And this all comes back to 2 police officers. If they were lying, then everything else is made up. Right? If those, right, when I went down, so the arresting officers, that's right, and without an investigation, how do you know? That's right. This is why we have charter rights. We have due process in this country. Do you think 3 years is due process? Do you think that, you know, they could have just sent a follow-up saying we received that letter? Of course they could. But instead he replies trying to pretend he's a victim, knowing that his questions act as a summary of this issue. So anybody reading this doesn't know the reason I went down to Halifax Regional Police was to file a complaint against Dan Kinsella. They don't know this context. It all looks like it's HRP. Because that way, Commission and Paul can paint themselves as victims. Oh, I'm confusing something. No, I'm not confusing. I can't make you ask those questions like that. I'm begging you for basic decency. I'm asking you for my basic rights as a Canadian. I'm not asking you to agree with me. I'm just asking you to escalate this so that I can have a proper chance and speak to somebody about a serious ongoing public safety issue. If somebody else was sexually assaulted now, is CRCC not partially responsible? I bet you Paul will say there's nothing that he could do. That's right, he couldn't escalate this case. He couldn't record this abuse. He couldn't ask full and complete questions, which are a professional standard. He couldn't empathize. He couldn't follow up in a couple days. You all know that I'm not the unreasonable one here. CRCC is the unreasonable one. And as you will see in my response, and you will see the response posted here, that I have asked that they escalate this case to their Human Resources Department. That's it. Just ask that they escalate it because I don't feel like I'm being treated fairly, and I don't think that they're following proper process given the sexual assault and the national security issues and the quality of the evidence submitted. Right? That this has now become a serious issue with public safety, and the CRCC continuing to act like this and provide this type of these types of responses, and after 8 months, right, is a massive issue to public trust. And if they continue down this road, they might be liable for further sexual assault and abuse, but serious damage to public trust in these systems. I just want Canada, listen, I want to apologize to all of these different communities that have gone through these systems and had to deal with people like this, from the CRCC and Paul and, you know, these police officers. Listen, there's nothing we can do about it. We can't change what these people do. But listen, I am sorry. I do see you. I know I didn't do any part of it or anything like that, but I'm sorry. I want you to know that people do see that, right? And I get to see it a little bit more watching them do this to me. 3 years. 3 years. That's right, and they did this to your communities, they did this to your families, right? They treated you less than human, just like I'm being treated here, didn't they? That's right, it's not because you're not good enough, it's not because of the quality of the evidence, it's not because of all the abuse that you can prove these officers went through. It's because they would have to face themselves, wouldn't it? He'd have to wake up in the morning, he'd have to send a simple email, oh, maybe I made a mistake, this guy deserves basic rights, just like you and your communities. So as long as these places keep putting people in these positions who are complicit, complacent, compliant with this kind of fraud and abuse, we are nothing. Canadians are nothing. You don't deserve due rights process. You don't deserve all of this. And you're horrible people for sending emails asking for an update about a sexual assault. Stop and think about what I'm saying to you. Welcome to the real Canada.